Hello and welcome to a brand new podcast, video podcast, Peloton on Pause, brought to you by Green Edge. Now we're going to be doing these every Monday when the non-racing period, which could be quite a while the way it's looking. And we're going to be chatting with two stars from Mitchelton-Scott, the men and the women's team. And we're going to kick things off with a couple of the old fan favourites, Daryl Impey and Chris Juul-Jensen. Fellas, I'll start with you, Chris. How are you travelling in Denmark? And chapeau for the way you filled out the screen there, mate. You've done well with that jersey in the background. Yeah,
and also the mustache. I'm surprised you actually haven't noticed it yet, Jonesy.
Have you had a trim?
I've finally tried to sort of get something that resembles a bit of a mustache. So if this no racing keeps going till November, I may actually be in with a chance to have a November. But no, things in Denmark are good, especially now that you've made a big comeback. Bloody hell! That's it.
It's been a while, mate.
It's been a
the
while.
Last time I saw you would have been the 2017 Vuelta, and you weren't a father then. Lots changed in that period. You look like you've aged.
I was not as tired as I am today. That's for sure. Entire world's gone into Operation Lockdown is a bit strange, I must admit. But well, like I said, this is again helping on one's mental health. That we've got you back in the fore. So hopefully we'll be able to stick it out a bit more in the next couple of weeks.
Now, talking about lockdowns, Daryl, you're currently held up in Girona, which is in Catalonia. There's obviously some heavy restrictions going on there at the moment, and you've moved apartments in the meantime as well. So it's been a pretty hectic period for you, mate.
Well, got through everything actually just in time. So they basically locked us down, and we just as they did the lockdown, we were actually busy with the move. So got to our new place. Actually, fortunately, it's got a garden, so we got that just in time with 3 boys. You can imagine them running around an apartment. It wouldn't be too much fun. So we're on day 15 or 16 right now. So it's been helpful to have a bit of garden space and all of that. But then you appreciate the smaller things like having internet. They couldn't install the internet, so the boys had no TV, no special YouTubes, no Netflixes. So that was good. It was actually good to do some different stuff, like we actually I think all the boys discovered they had some brothers, so that was good. And so they learned to play with each other. And
Erica's discovered she doesn't have any brothers or sisters, just parents.
Well, you're like one of the kids. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm entertaining her, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been interesting to see like these. It's actually. I'd say for us being in lockdown, it's obviously we're missing the racing and bouncing off the walls over that. But from the other side, the positive side is that like from a family point of view, it's actually been great for us. We hardly ever have a period like this where we just us, just the little Impey clan. Because normally if you go back home, South Africa, then it's with with grandparents, with everybody else. But we've actually never had a period where we've actually just been the 5 of us. So from that point, it's been great, but I know it's starting to wear down on us now. It's pretty hectic, where you can only go outside by yourself, and it's just to get groceries or anything from the pharmacy. So, indoor training has become interesting, and also we did actually Olympic Games yesterday with the kids in the garden. So we're getting creative as well.
What sort of events did you run, Imps?
We just did like the full decathlon, We tried everything. We even did an egg and spoon race at one point. So
those home events will be aired on online soon, I reckon, around the world. People got to get their sporting fix.
Well, what are the current restrictions in Denmark, Chris?
Well, there hasn't been such a massive shutdown as Spain and Italy. People can't go out, but I think the last 2 weeks, we've all been sort of encouraged to stay indoors as much as possible, which I can see from when I look out my window in the middle of Copenhagen. It's quite obvious. It's even though it is also a little bit ironic that Mother Nature's given us the wettest winter ever, and then more or less the day after, we were told to stay indoors. the sun started shining, and it hasn't stopped since. So people have been, I think they've been struggling to try and stay indoors as much as possible, but it seems to have worked. So hopefully, they'll slowly but surely we'll be able to get back to a sort of normal way of life. But I reckon it'll be a couple of weeks yet. But like Impey was talking about, it is a good opportunity for those who can to sort of be creative with this enormous amount of home time, because we're usually away most of the spring, and now we've just gone from 100 to 0 and from one day to the next. But actually, if you can make the most of it, it's quite enjoyable. We have 80 square meters between the three of us, so we certainly get to know our apartment quite well and get to know one another. My wife and our daughter Erica, she's 16 months now, so she's loving it. She doesn't notice she's not in kindergarten at the moment. She's having a great time.
I suppose the biggest thing is, like, for people like me, I can lock it down and just watch Netflix and not really stress too much. But you guys have got to stay fit. Like, you're still professional athletes. I mean, I'll start with you, Imps. How are you juggling that side of things? Is it just a lot of Zwift on the trainer? How are you getting by with that side of things?
Well, definitely. It's we've been swifting all the time, really. It's actually been quite good to have all the social rides that we've been putting on.
You were going pretty good yesterday, Imps.
No, man. Well, Durbo took off so fast, so that I thought, well,
was that him?
It was Durbo. I think Durbo was there actually, but yeah. So he took off, and then I thought I'll try and just get up to him a little bit, but there was no chance. Like, he was clearly in the zone. But it's been good to do some social things like that and pass the time. But I mean, it's getting difficult to do long rides, Jonesy. It's not. Especially for me, I love riding outdoors. The longest time I spent on a trainer before that was 1 hour. So been difficult. I've been doing some gym around the house. Obviously, picking up boxes, moving things. That's my own little personal gym as well as picking up the 1-year-old Kieran. So playing soccer with him on the shoulders, and that's been a little bit of gym work. But
how heavy is he?
To do the
How heavy is he?
Oh, he's about 10 now, 10 kilos.
Yeah.
So got a little bit of extra weight going there. And
I can feel that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to train indoors all the time, especially when some other countries guys are still training outdoors and things like that. So it's making it challenging. But fortunately, the team's been pretty understanding with that. And I mean, not fortunately, but we know that we're not going to be racing for a fair while now. So I think these first 2 weeks, just letting things sink in a little bit. But no doubt there's going to be some big days coming up indoors coming up now.
Yeah. What about you, Joker? How are you going on the cross trainer?
Yeah, well, I've actually, similar to Imps. Imps and I also have the same coach, so it'll be interesting to see if we get the same kind of program. But it's been busy on Zwift. Thanks to the team being so proactive with all the Zwift activities. So I think I speak on behalf of a lot of riders when I say that we had plenty going for us there the first 2 weeks, and I must say I've been a bit hesitant getting on Zwift. So our first group ride event, geez, I reckon I was more stressed getting logged on and downloading the right programs than I was before Team Time Trial. So it was all of a sudden it was a lot of new stuff that I had to manage. But then once we got going, it's actually pretty cool. It's hard, jeez, it's real hard. So it's going to be interesting to see how many of these how long we're going to have to spend on our tax home trainers. But up until now, it's been good fun. And now I think after these first 2 weeks, when we realize that there's going to be a long period before we have to start racing anyhow, then this is more like the starting phase of a winter training build. So I think it'll only be within the next couple of weeks that we start a serious sort of program, which would be pretty interesting to see how we go. But I mean, in a way, I think for bike riders, we're used to getting on the road, training camps or races, and now we're sort of gone to a race or a training camp at home in terms of sort of structuring your day. Now it's just a question of sort of trying to get your family, the ones you're living with, on board to sort of pretend you're in a way at a race or at a training camp in terms of using some of those tools to get through the day, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm not expecting a massage every day and pass at 6, but
I
it
asked
is a
Ellie
question.
for a massage, but she said no. But I mean, I still tried.
It is, it's sort of trying to use those, getting used to being in lockdown mode, which we are most of the year when we hit the road, But now you're just doing it with your family, which is quite fun.
Well, that gets us to a segment, and that is top tips for lockdown. Imps, obviously, keeping things fresh, particularly when you've got kids and doing little Olympics and little games like that. What would be your top tips for people that are, everyone's going through lockdown at the moment, for people across the world, mate?
You know what? I think it's actually a great opportunity to get off the phone, really. And to actually, one thing that I've really actually enjoyed is the homework part. Like, I mean, the school's just still been sending some homeschooling stuff to do, and I've actually been amazed how much my kids know, how much Spanish, how much Catalan they actually know, and how actually they're smarter than me in quite a few ways. It was the one day I was telling Aiden he was doing something wrong, and he was actually like, Dad, read it properly. And I was like, listen, I've read it. I've translated on Google Translate. This is what you got to do. And he was like, no, read it understand. This is what you got to do. And actually, at the end, he was right. I've sent in homework back to the teacher, and she says, no, you've done the wrong thing. And then Ali, my wife, obviously, she shits me out a little bit, like, oh, why aren't you giving the right thing to do? But I've actually learned a bit of Spanish, so it's actually been quite good to see how advanced the kids have got. It's been a time to appreciate how much, you send them to school every day, you pick them up and you ask them how their day was, and you don't really get it until you actually see the work that they're doing, until you actually see what they're actually achieving, actually realize wow, it's amazing what your kids are actually doing. So I think the biggest tip is the thing that I've enjoyed the most is actually that kind of part of it, understanding where everyone's at in the family. It's really been a great time to regroup. But yeah, I think the biggest part is to also I think you got to allow the kids to enjoy themselves a bit. Obviously, we don't say our kids don't play iPads, but this particular time, we're just letting it go a little bit, letting them play the iPads. They also don't want to be in lockdown. So
Instead of let it go, is that because
I don't let them play the iPad for 4 hours a day, but give them a little bit of extra time that they normally don't get, and they're also cooped up here. That's one thing we've got to remember as well. They also don't want to be just shoved in a house all day. Yeah.
And what about you, Chris? You're in an apartment, so you've got it a little bit tougher than people with a backyard that can do egg and spoon races.
We've certainly sort of made the most of we have a storage room which has been filled to the brim now. Sort of slowly gotten rid of more and more furniture to clear some more floor space. But I think I agree with Impey that my knee. I just that it's about making the most of this period, because all of a sudden I reckon we'll be back to normal. So it's about sort of trying to enjoy this bubble that we're in as much as we possibly can, and try to ignore the stress around around this whole crisis, because I think a lot of the things that worry us are the things that are more or less out of our control, because we're being advised to stay in as much as possible, because that's the most effective way of trying to stop the virus from spreading. So there's really not much for us to do other than stay at home and try and make the most of the time we've got, which I think is the key to trying to get through this period, because I think a lot of people will probably, once we get back to our busy day-to-day lives, look back to this period and go, wow, it was actually super enjoyable to just chill, do things that you're not used to.
Pause.
Pardon me?
Press pause.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe self-reflect a little bit and realize what's actually, without sounding too corny, and you realize that what really matters is you get a bit of you get some good time at home. But obviously it's different for a lot of people, because we're fortunate enough to have family to spend this time with. So I can't imagine it must be difficult for those home alone. But then I think it's just a question of trying to create as much structure and being as proactive as possible, so so you're not, constantly focusing on what you can't do. And then again, I think one shouldn't put too many restrictions in place. Do what's enjoyable, rather than try and
gotta keep
minimize. Yeah, do what you actually like doing, and what you can do now that you're in a situation where you can't leave your home.
Yeah. Well, one thing we did here is we rearranged the furniture. Game changer. Kids come in, and little Willie was like, "Wow," and then he got bored after about 20 minutes. But for that 20 minutes, it was good, and it just freshens it up mentally.
You thought you had struck gold for 20 minutes. You thought, I'm the cleverest dad ever.
Yeah. I also bought
playing Tetris in your own home.
Yeah, I bought an indoor tent. I thought, oh, this is great. They're going to get like hours out of this. I reckon I was lucky to get 2 minutes, and then no.
Then you got to take the tent down because it's in your way.
Yeah, I know.
I've noticed that.
I just pushed it in the corner.
I end up kidnapping some of Erica's games. She's sitting there playing like quietly and just looking after herself, and then it's me that sort of gets a little bit agitated. Like, oh, I want to get amongst it, and then I start like trying to change the game, which she doesn't particularly find very interesting, and then it's because it's just because I'm getting a bit antsy and want to join the fun,
So one of the other things that they wanted to create a bit of a weekly segment around is cycling cravings. Obviously, if you're 15 days in and you've missed out on some classic races, Imps, no doubt you probably would have done Milan San Remo and races like that. But what are the things that you would have absolutely bolted in? What are the things you're craving the most? Is it just general stuff like hanging out with your teammates on the bus, or is it other things like you're talking about massages? Joker, we'll start with you, Imps. What are you missing the most at the moment?
Mate, I reckon that the most I'm missing is just getting outside. And having a purpose. I think having the goal of like going to the race and like feeling that pressure of like, are we going to do well? Yeah, we got some, we want to be up amongst it. It's going to be tough. Even if the weather's bad, everyone like hustles together and like, all right, boys, we're going to do this. So I'm missing that part of it, like the drive aspect, like of really like having a target in place and going for things. I think, every day I live a very structured life of get up, school, get the kids ready for school and then go training. But whereas now it's like kind of, we're making sure that we're even just getting out of our pajamas by 9 o'clock, because like otherwise you just like you find out at 5 p.m. you're still in your pajamas. So those kinds of things, like not having that purpose really to like get out and race and let out all the frustration. I think because basically we build up and you train and you want to see what the outcome is, and now you're just basically training indoors, but you don't know when you're going to be able to like actually release and to go for something. So I think that's been the biggest frustration. Obviously we missed the teammates, but actually the other day we did a fantastic thing where we actually, and it came from the rider side, it didn't come from management or whatever. We all actually just hooked in on Zoom, and we actually had our own little chat. So it was like we were in the bus, we
that's pretty good.
Had a beer together and we just all chatted from all parts of the world. Everyone's obviously in quarantine or stuck at home. And that's what made this team pretty special, like we actually kind of missed each other and needed a bit of a point where we could like just chat to each other, see where everyone's at, and see if anyone needs a helping hand. And that was cool. So like, we'll probably do more of that stuff in the future. But I think generally I'm missing the full, the release part of racing a bike.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I miss getting amongst it at the races. Getting out and sort of the atmosphere of the fans, and also the tension in the bunch, and the sort of the riders, sort of the way we compete within or amongst one another. I think that's what we all race for, and train for. That's to race. So that I reckon that's what I miss the most, and also being part of something where the races that are so big, the Pro Tour races, where you can feel that how the fans they also sort of, especially this time of year, the spring, everyone's been looking forward to it throughout the winter. it puts things into perspective as to what we're a part of when we do these spring classic races. So that's something I think will be massive once we get back. That is the relief that things are slowly getting back to normal, and we can focus on something that, in the bigger picture, winning a bike race isn't as important as winning against Corona, if you say it like that. But it'll be nice to get back to that way of thinking and way of living. That okay, let's just let's focus on what we live for, which is riding our bikes and racing, which would be nice and which would be quite simple again. And again, I think it'll make us appreciate what we're part of. And then I think the being amongst the staff and amongst the team will also be really important to get back to, because of course us riders, we're pretty big at home. We're on Swift. We're doing a lot of things to keep us active. Actually, we can train similar to what we do during the winter. There's not much of a difference, but it's difficult for the staff, especially the staff in this team, Mitchelton-Scott, that sort of, the passion towards helping us riders is massive. So I think it'll be pretty cool to get back with the staff as well, who are probably desperate to get amongst it with their job.
One thing that I was really missing here for about a week, it actually got quite traumatic in Australia, was toilet rolls. There was just no one could get a toilet roll for about a month. Did you have any of those dramas, Imps, with the supermarkets in Girona?
Not really, actually. The day one when they did the lockdown, people obviously went mad and bought toilet paper, and we were one of the people that went later in the afternoon and thought, oh, let's see what's left. But toilet paper was gone. I mean, but then I just bought some serviettes in case. Like I just bought 300 serviettes now, and we haven't even used them. So that's what we did. It was amazing. It was like a row full of serviettes next to us, and I thought, well, geez, all right, well, there's no more food, there's no more toilet paper. Well, why aren't people grabbing these? So I grabbed some of those, and the next day everything was pretty calm. Like they were stocked up again, and I think once they saw that the shelves were stocked up again, people just stopped the panic buying.
Calm down a little bit.
It was literally one day where they were out of stock, and then the next day everything was back to normal. And the Spanish people are chill. Spanish people are great actually in a lockdown. They actually like to be at home. So from that point, it's been super easy. Like we've had no stress of no one fighting for food or anything like that. I think back home in South Africa, it's going to be a different story. They're actually on day 2 or 3 of lockdown now. So I think there it's going to be a bit more challenging. It's going to be very tough to control everything back home.
They run out of rusks.
Russ, you know what? I'm so tempted to start making them myself, but
haven't you started
although
baking
I've got
yet?
all this time, I actually still find myself with no time. I don't know where the hell what I'll do, but the other day I was like, I can't get to that now. I'm too busy, and I was thinking, what am I doing?
Busy with what? Yeah.
What about you, Joker? How are the stores in Denmark? Did you run out of any of the essentials, or they'd be pretty civilized?
The usual toilet paper, and then yeast.
Yeast.
Yeah, yeast also disappears in crisis times here in Denmark, and you can't get it anymore. So yeast and toilet paper. I don't understand the toilet paper part. I mean, if there's one thing you can survive without, it's toilet paper. If you have running water, but I mean, because there's no proteins or there's no carbohydrates in toilet paper. And I also, it was a bit weird that why wasn't soap sold out at the same time? They're telling us to wash our hands. Everyone's buying a lot of toilet paper, but they're not buying much soap by the looks of things.
Well, I think hand sanitizer is pretty hard to get.
That's hard to get. I found we went up to the summer house. We escaped the city and went up to the summer house the other day, where I found an unused tub of hand sanitizer. I felt like I'd won the lottery.
You just put it on eBay.
I've just started opening up the whiskey cabinet and using that now.
Now we've got another segment. This is actually feel good stuff. This is presented by Scott Sports. and it's called Inside the Victory. And what they want to talk about is the victory that means the most to you. We'll start with you, Daryl. Probably got a little bit more of a Rolodex to get through, with all respect.
There's a few more to choose from.
What's the one that stands out?
Okay, look, well, probably the biggest victory was obviously last year in the Tour de France. That was such a special day. Obviously, it's the first Tour de France stage win that I've had. Just the way the whole day, everything went well. It was the first one for the team that year, which was a successful year last year. We got 4 stages, but I think it was just like it felt like everything, like my career came to like a boiling point, and it was like this was the moment to win something big, and that was really it. I think when I was riding my bike, I felt like, don't cock this up, you're not going to get another opportunity like this. And I think, definitely the Tour de France was the biggest. But one of my best or my favorite victory was SA Champs last year. Although it's a pretty small race compared to the European scene, there being on the home roads was close to my home. Lots of fans and the crowd there, and friends, and everybody came to support me, and to win in front of them, that was probably one of the best races I've ever done in my career. I think that was, for me, when I won there, it was like, sure, I'd won the jersey again, but it was more than that. It was more that, like, I just felt like I had so many things against me on that day, and to overcome all of those things and to have a perfect race and still win, and then win solo, that was super cool. But definitely in the hierarchy of wins, the Tour de France is obviously the pinnacle.
Because there was a lot of pressure going into that stage, because there was such a long drought between stage wins. I think the last one would have been Bling in 2016, and it was almost felt like the team was cursed when it come to the Tour, because you've been so successful outside of the biggest race in July.
Sure, like we go every year. I go to the Tour de France, and I've been on the good side of it, and I've been many times on the bad side of it. It's the best race to go to when things are going well, like they were for us last year. But it is the worst race in the world to go if you're going chasing results and they're not coming, and everybody's in good shape, but there's just other teams or other riders from other teams that are just going better than you, or they're luckier, or things like last year, the cards fell our way, and there's been so many years where things haven't gone our way. We've come second and third, but at the end of the day, no one cares who comes second or third. So for us, chasing a victory, but that wasn't in my mind. They're thinking about, the team, we've had a drought, I've got the pressure to win yet. It was more in that moment, like I felt like, this is your moment to, like, win something. Like, if you cock this up, this is your own fault. You won't get this chance again. And yeah, I think that's what happened. But at the end of the day, I think the big part there is we've seen it with other teams, like Dimension Day, the one year won 5 stages in the Tour de France, and then they've had a drought the last two or 3 years. It happens. We get to the Tour de France, and one team knocks out 5 stages. There's not many left for the other teams.
Race.
Yeah. Did you feel that you got a bigger reception when you took the yellow jersey in 2013, or your stage win on Bastille Day? Back home.
I think the yellow jersey was definitely bigger. I think one was creating history. Robbie Hunt had already won a stage in the Tour de France. And also then, the magnitude of the yellow jersey. It's like the holy grail of cycling. So to have to wear the yellow jersey and making history, making waves back home, that was by far bigger than winning a stage in the Tour de France. And definitely, when I look back and when we've been to Tour de France since wearing the yellow jersey, you realize how difficult it is to get, how the stars have to line up, how the route has to be. In the first week, if the route's not right for me, I've got zero chance of trying to get the yellow jersey. So from that point, definitely the yellow jersey was way bigger. People were wearing yellow back home on that Friday to show support. Schools were dressing up in yellow. I mean, it was crazy. So from that point, definitely it was way bigger.
Yeah. What about you, Joker? Was it your victory? Was it last year at Swiss or the year before?
The year before.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't have many as many wins to my name as someone like Eames, but I still between winning the national time trial champs, Tour of Denmark, or Tour of Swiss stage win, then it's definitely Tour of Swiss stage win in 2018. Also, mainly because it was something I was desperate to try and achieve, crossing the finish line first. I won Tour of Denmark in 2015, but I didn't win a stage in that stage race. So I still was so curious to know what it actually feels like, crossing the finish line with your hands in the air alone, which is ultimately what we train for every day. So for that to actually happen on a day where I did not expect it at all, then that was special. And even I've watched the repeats many times, especially after becoming a dad. I got Erica. I think she's seen it about 100 times now. But even again today, it was the odds were against me because I was close to being caught on the top of the final climb. So I sort of just doing the last 6-7K with expecting to be caught. So it was only when I rode out onto the airfield, which was a horrible last 3K, because the bunch could see me and I could more or less see the whole way to the finish line. It was only there that I actually started to think, whoa, I may stay away. And then it is, it's quite special to be in a position to be like, wow, okay, now you gotta soak it up and really try to remember what it looks like. These, the final 200-300 meters where I was riding towards the line to cross it as the first rider. That's something I was only able to sort of dream or imagine because I hadn't tried it yet, but myself. So to have those pictures in my head based on something that actually has happened is nice and a relief, to be honest, because I was starting to worry that it would be something that would start haunting me a little bit. Will I ever have that opportunity to try and win, to win a race? And everyone says, eventually it'll happen, and you have to, it'll just one day, it'll just everything, the stars will align, and it'll be your day. And I was like, yeah. But I think when you start to also appreciate stories like when Heyman won Roubaix and different victories like this, then you really start to believe that, okay, if I stop stressing too much about it, then maybe it will eventually just pan out the way I wanted to. And that's exactly what happened there in Tour of Swiss. And it's pretty easy. You straight away, I noticed that when you've tried it once, you definitely want to try it again. And that was actually an interesting feeling, because it made me realize that even if you win 100 races, then you still want to win 101. It'll never get boring. So now it's just a question of trying to get that feeling again, because it was something that it's hard to describe, and that was what was sort of getting at me. It's like I didn't know what it felt like myself crossing the finish line first. So that was definitely something that stands out for sure.
In terms of what effect victories have on the rest of the group, you brought it up before, Heyman's Roubaix victory in terms of overcoming massive odds. Does that still resonate with the riders of the current group, Imps, like victories like that? And do you dwell on things that have happened in the past for motivation?
I think it's always a story that we can bring up, and especially if someone does have an accident or someone gets injured, then it is something that we say, hey man, you don't have really an excuse. There's Matty Heyman, he broke his arm and he won Roubaix 6 weeks later. So
6 weeks of quarantine is maybe a little bit easier with a story like that.
He trained on Zwift.
He's a great reference, I think, for the young guys. I think the new crop that's coming up, they haven't really raced with Matty or understood who Matty was. Whereas us, Chris and myself and Durban, Heppy and those guys, we all raced with Matty. So we know what a kind of a teammate he was as well. Like he would give you his bike, he would stop, if you needed anything, Matty was the guy that would do things for you. So, I think Matty's victory, like when we saw the good guy got such a big win, we were all like, man, that's massive. And that's how we really relate to it, because we go, man, if you saw the stuff that guy did in the before that at the background, helping us at other races, then you really like appreciate the victory that Matty got. Whereas the new guys that have come to the team, they've never raced with him, they never understood what Matty was before. They just think, oh, I saw you train on Swift and he won Paris-Roubaix. And most of them haven't even done Paris-Roubaix. So once they've done Paris-Roubaix and they see, oh, geez, that guy actually, what he was doing in the day as well, attacking and going off the front and then still being able to pull it off, then they understand, like, oh, no, this guy's actually, he's a hitter, you know? He's not just Matty Hammer who trained on Swift and then he won Paris-Roubaix. He's flipping, this guy's the real deal. Like, you know, then they start to get a respect for him. And I think as well in the group, we've, you know, as now I've transitioned into one of the older guys. I'm the second oldest guy in the team, second or third. You know, when I came to the team, I had Stuart O'Grady and those kinds of guys, and I only raced with them for like a year or so. And it's only as I've grown in the team and as I've, you know, these past 8 years, as I've matured in the team, I've actually realized, like, I need to do what Stewie was doing for me. You know, like, he was kind of like helping me through the process, or, you know, Gossi and Gero and all of these guys. They were all kind of like lending a hand, and now I'm trying to fill that role too. So I think generally we all try and use certain riders along the way that people can relate to, and you know, and definitely I think all of us older guys on the team now, we're actually starting to see that we need to be the responsible ones to show the young guys what to do. I think Chris can also say, like, we've actually, you know, before we used to like lean on the older guys to like pull someone's head in a little bit, but actually now we're the guys that actually have to do it. I think we're the guys that have to say to the young guys, hey, buddy, it doesn't work that way in this team like this.
How you going with that, Joke? Are you the enforcer, mate?
Well, yeah, I appreciate Impey seeing me as one of the responsible types on the team. As you can hear, Jonesy, lots happened since 2017.
Well, we're average age of like 24 something in our team. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's actually...
One thing I noticed changed was when you go to the Tour de France, you used to be all about scabbing cups and seeing whatever you could get out of the crowds, whereas now I heard there's no randoms that even go on the bus anymore for fear of hygiene. So don't worry about protections now that we're in Corona. You guys were taking steps 2 years ago to make sure that you weren't getting any stray bugs.
Yeah.
Well, back to the first point. What's happened? You don't scab stuff off fans anymore, Joker.
Well, it's actually an honest or good point to make in referencing the 2016 Tour de France, because I think for me as a rider, it was a massive wake up call, because it takes a lot to get picked for the Tour, but it takes a lot more to perform at the Tour. And I think for me, I really got a bit of a shock to the system. And maybe, you know, maybe no surprise that it took me a while to get maybe back in the Tour team, because I still had a good bit to learn as a rider as to how, you know, you handle. There's a lot of things you can do at a normal race, you know, but at the Tour you got to do it a little bit better.
I noticed that you weren't making as many jokes maybe a week into the race. Was that because you were cooked, or was that from everyone just saying, "Hey, mate, we're at the Tour"?
I think it was a healthy combination of me being slightly more tired than I was expecting, and then also realizing that, okay, people aren't laughing as many jokes as I was hoping. But and I think Impey talked about it, about a rider such as Heyman. I think that's the strength of this team, is that there are riders and sports directors that are able to help riders, the younger riders, try to figure out the do's and don'ts, but do it in a way where it's up to oneself to sort of try and make sure that you progress in the way that the team sort of wishes you to progress in. And I've certainly gone through that process since you left the team, Jonesy. I hope, anyway. That's how I see it, certainly. But because when the older you get, the more responsibility you have to ride with. Obviously, that's a given. Because it's super important, especially this day and age. I mean, riders can turn pro and then from one day to the next, they can be winning monuments and grand tours, as we can see with the younger riders. So there's, they've got to have some experience to lean on if they're going from being an under 23 amateur to riding GC in a grand tour. That's hard to do without a bit of guidance and a bit of a bit of experience by your side.
Now we've got another segment, which is Ask Anything, presented by Shimano. I've got a couple of questions from your top fans on Facebook, so keep them coming in at the Mitchelton-Scott Facebook page. And one is from Adrian O'Neill. He wants to know what is your typical gearing you guys use in a race?
5311.
Yeah. What about you?
54.
Imps?
Always 54. I mean,
you're 54, man. That's right.
Man, it's funny is that Chris is a guy that stomps on the big gears. He rides a massive gear all the time, but then he rides a 53. It's like maybe that's why he can ride the big gears all the time, because he's riding 53 and I'm riding 54. So
yeah, maybe it's a psychological thing. Then I can ride in the big chainring longer than you can on the climbs, and then people they look down and like, whoa, he's still in the big chainring.
That's because you go further in the mountains anyway than me, so that's why you're riding in the big chainring. No, I think 54, and normally I ride a 38. It's weird. I don't like the 39. I ride a 38 in a chainring, and obviously 11 to 30 cassette for me.
Yep, that means that's like talking Chinese to me, mate.
Yeah, that's a lot of. It's like talk brain science.
Yeah,
but the 38 is the big cog in the back on the rear,
right,
and the 11 is the little one. But
okay.
I mean, for the guys listening, then. When we do a race, we often have a WhatsApp group with the mechanics where we every day we actually send them in, depending on what the stage is like, we send in a request. And there, I must admit, I'm a bit like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I change between the 53 and the 54 depending on, if it's a flat stage or if it's a hilly stage. But the back cogs there, I usually just see what everyone else writes in the group, because that confuses me a little bit as well. So Chris, you're not the only one, Jonesy.
Chris is like a mechanic's worst nightmare, actually, at some times. He's like late.
That's not true.
At dinner, everyone's discussing the 54, the 53, or like a 11, 28, and then he'll like think about it, and like the mechanics just come down for dinner, and he's like, mechanics group, hey guys, I wouldn't mind if I can have a 54 on tomorrow, actually. And then they're like, tomorrow morning they're gonna do it. They'll do it because we got such great mechanics.
We've got such good staff. They'll do anything.
Yeah,
but you got to take that. You respect that, though.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we've got another question, and it's from Ryan Bridges, and he wants to know what climb in the world have you done most reps on, and what do you like most about it? We'll start with you, Imps.
Most reps. Well, the climb I do the most is here in Girona. It's called Mare.
The quaddie climb.
The quaddie climb. Half the Peloton does it. So. Yeah, man, I don't know how many times I've done that. Like, some days we do it 5 times, 6 times, 8 times. The definitely a mare. It's 7, I think it's 8 Ks long. And I hardly ever go to the top, though. And I always do like 15 or, 20 to 5 to 20 minutes up there. So I never get to the top. But it's funny, I never ever ride to the top either if I don't have to. So I'll just flip it even if it's 500 meters to go. But definitely a mare.
Yeah, and what about you, Jugger?
Well, as I live in Denmark, there are no climbs.
Yeah, the local bridge.
Yeah, the local bridge. But I'd say the few times I've visited Girona, then Quaddie's gotten me doing a mare the same as him so many times that I've already clocked up a good few a mare climbs in my career so far. But also, I'd say. One of my favorite climbs is Twisty Road, the climb I rode every day when I lived on top of the Little Sugarloaf in Ireland. I don't actually know if the road has a name. We just called it Twisty Road. Yeah. And that climb I've done a lot of times. Twisty Road turned into Bumpy Road, but that's because when we were really small, then the road we lived on was bumpy, so we just called it Bumpy Road. But then it got actually really nice tarmac, so it was completely smooth, but we still called it Bumpy Road. And more or less every single ride I did, my dad and I, we'd sprint from the bottom of Bumpy Road. There was like a speed hump up to our gate. and then it would just be a face-off. So like 20k before the finish of our ride, we'd start winding it up for this bumpy road sprint.
Yep.
So twisty road, bumpy road. But yeah, that's one of my favorite climbs. Kilmechanic, Wicklow.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. Well, we didn't get a heap of questions on the Facebook page. So.
Yeah, I noticed that on the Instagram. There's one comment.
I saw one question. They were saying who. I saw one question. You might have missed it. Is that
yeah, probably did.
Who decides who rooms with who? And really, on our team, fortunately, we all don't mind rooming with each other. And really, they probably put the people together that are like most suitable, like, you know, sleep patterns. Someone's got kids, they get up early, or, you know, a guy like Yatesy, he's up super late. So is a guy like Hagee, they're up super late and they wake up super late. Whereas Chris and I both have children. We up, you know, we FaceTime our family earlier than the rest.
We wake up, tour.
We room together the tour, and it was actually a good combination because
it's real good.
Chris did a lot of the talking and I did a lot of the listening, and then like
that's because the coffee that you brewed was so strong it blew my socks off.
I got the coffee going every morning. We actually had an automatic timer. Like we had a mocha pot and it had an automatic timer. So it'd say like, all right, we're waking up at 7 tomorrow. Got to get ready. But we'll set the timer for like just 10 to 7. So it's like brewing and like you can smell
amazing,
the smell of coffee. It was a great start to the tour last year. Chris.
But I'll tell you that the day the stage that the coffee machine packed it in, I mean, Corona crisis atmosphere doesn't even compare to how we felt when Daryl Impey's coffee machine stopped working.
It was bad, It was bad. Then we found out we could use the base from the hotels. We would like go.
Yeah, so talking about mechanics nightmare.
So I gave that to the mechanics to try to fix, and they were like obviously super pissed because they got enough stuff to do at the tour. And then
we're trying to get ready for the time trial tomorrow. It's like, yeah, I know, but like you just got to fix this base, man. And of course, the mechanics, they were up till bloody midnight trying to fix the coffee machine.
And then so like we couldn't get it to work, but then we found the base actually at the hotel. Like every hotel obviously has got a little coffee machine, little kettle, so we were able to use that in some of the hotels, just not with a timer. But that started to work well. And then and then obviously after all our success. After all, like success at the tour, then it started like we stopped worrying about the coffee machine action. Then we ordered some whiskeys for the final stage in Paris, so that was good.
Now I even came knocking on Imp's door when sometimes you have single rooms in the tour, and there I'd send him a text or he'd even send me a text when I woke up like brew's ready, bro, and then I'd walk over to the door and get a cup of coffee before I went to breakfast.
How's that as a teammate?
Well, imagine that, spending 3 weeks on the road with your mates, just hanging out. And then winning stages.
Best job in the world.
Doesn't get much better than mitchelton-scott.
Coffee. Jeez.
Well, it's been a monster first episode, guys. I'm pretty sure the fans will mop that one up. Is there any final words you want to say to all the people listening and watching? Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty going on. Obviously, thoughts are in for all the people affected by coronavirus, particularly the healthcare workers. Obviously, being married to a doctor, we're sort of strapping ourselves in for a pretty stressful period. And, you've only got to see what's happening in Italy and these sort of countries, and even where you are, Imps, in Spain, it's obviously getting pretty horrific. So I'll leave you guys with a final word each. I'll start with you, Imps, what you want to say to everyone moving forward.
Man, I think first thing that we're all sitting here feeling sorry for ourselves, how we're in isolation, and we're being thankful that we can be with our families. But what we do forget is the people working, at the hospitals, all the doctors, the nurses, support staff around the world that aren't with their families and that are putting themselves at risk to try and curb this virus. I think we have to remember them in this moment more than thinking about ourselves, how hard it is too. Like I see in South Africa, people are like bitching and moaning that they can't take their dog for a walk or all those kinds of things. And you're thinking, well, you know what? Like if your dog doesn't go for a walk, there's lots of people out there that can't get out and exercise. But like you've got to imagine the people that are on the front lines now that are trying to curb this virus and trying to put it at bay. They're the ones that are risking the most. So I think, guys, if there's any initiatives in your country or you can lend a helping hand, I think this is a great moment to be a part of history and try and offer some support if you can.
And Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Eames. I mean, I think it's just about sending an endless amount of appreciation to those who are working sort of around the clock to try and, get us through this crisis as soon and as best as possible. So it is really about taking a bit of responsibility and trying to shield them from as best as we can. Everyone has a responsibility, and I think what the best we can do is trying to do as little as possible, really, in order to reduce the spread. Because there are people who are desperately trying to contain it and desperately trying to help, those who are sick, but also those who aren't necessarily sick with corona, but who are in need of medical attention in the hospitals. Those we must also not forget in this crisis period. And then I think it's important to keep in mind that, like with everything, then this will eventually end, and we'll be on the other side. And there, I think it's we also have to send our thanks and appreciation to the support around our team. Cycling, like so many other things, is slightly under the pump at the moment. But once we get back to racing, it's going to be a massive sigh of relief. That there's something to cheer for. So there's that only. It's just there's plenty to look forward to, and now it's just a question of trying to get through as best we can, and taking care of one another and appreciating the help that people do for other people. I think that's more or less the only thing you can do and should do.
Yep. Good way to finish, boys. That's a pretty big ep. We've crammed a lot in.
An ep just to talk to you, Jonesy.
Yeah. Well, if you've got any questions, mate, now's the time.
Well, I'd like to know how was it? How long did it take before you sort of had gotten out of the cycling world bubble and into the normal world bubble, or has it ever happened? I mean, that must have been a bit of a difficult transition, similar to when a rider retires.
Yeah,
it was so much as a part of the team, and then he sort of went back to Australia into a normal job. That must have been pretty difficult.
It was very difficult. I think it just felt that the pace was so fast with having two kids that are under 2.5. It's you struggle to find time to scratch your own butt, let alone trying to manage a different work 9 to 5. But I think the biggest thing you learn when you walk away from anything is just the friendships that you had, and you remember all the good stuff. So you don't remember the times that you're up, all hours of the night trying to cut videos together or whatever. You remember sitting around the dinner table having a laugh, or being in Girona, seeing people at the drop of a hat. All those sort of things that you remember, the good parts, they start creeping in, and that's when you really start to miss it, particularly with the weather changes. So when it's middle of winter here, it's middle of summer. And so all you're thinking about is going to the beaches in Girona and all the good stuff. But, I think looking back, it's probably a good time to walk away for a bit. I think a lot of people, particularly, I'm giving All for One a plug.
Yeah, you left with it. You have to turn the camera a little bit. You left with a bang with that movie. That was so good.
I mean, and it'd be great if we could all get together and do something again one day on a similar style, we just got to get through this period at the moment. And as you said, there's a lot to look forward to, and everyone's just got to stay positive.
We could watch the movie whilst we're waiting to get on the road again. That would actually that's a good plug to make. All for One.
That's right.
Remember we watched it before the Giro in 2017. Whoa. That motivated a couple of people.
That's right. But no, it's all good, and it's good to reconnect with you guys, because obviously we had a lot of good times on the bus there and hanging around Girona and so forth. So I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the first potty, and we ask all the fans to tune in again next Monday for another episode of Peloton on Pause.
Who are the guests next Monday?
Well, they've got pretty big shoes to fill. Because
they might just keep us on, Chris.
It's always difficult. It's always difficult to be the first ones, because now people can analyze our performance and be like, man, that was pretty average.
I think they should just do a poll on Facebook and just say, do you want Daryl and Chris to roll around again, or?
Yeah, I reckon they should. I mean, if we get
I've still got so much to give. I've still got so much to give.
The two people that answered the question on Facebook, I mean, if they answer again and say yes, then we could be in with a chance of doing a repeat next week.
That's right.
Well, then we've got like 100% strike rate.
Yeah. Plus, I feel that after the first hour, we're only really getting get going. You sort of have to ease into it. It is a bit nerve-wracking actually. You get up, and then you feel like the whole world is looking upon us because obviously a lot of people follow the team, so we'll have good views, I reckon.
Jeez, the sun's hitting you.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say. You eventually started going out of picture. Like you were just a silhouette in the end.
Oh, who, me?
Yeah.
The sun's
lose
out.
Points. That'll be the one thing that'll hold you back is the framing. It started out so crisp, now it just blasted with light. So
because it was such a last minute thing, next time I'll actually, if I do get on again, I'll make sure that I've actually got a room, like a proper room.
Yeah, perfect. Instead
dedicated chambra.
That looks like something off Scarface, mate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll end it on that. Thanks for tuning in. And as we said, tune in next Monday. Maybe Chris and Daryl again. But
otherwise, Daryl and I will just make our own potty.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. That's another thing we can plug, Jonesy. When Heppy and I did the potty going home from the Giro final stage. That's we just Daryl, you and I we'll keep in touch after this.
I'll go listen to it. I'll get inspired.
All right, the fourth attempt to end the podcast. And this will be a successful one.
I just want maybe we should just keep it going and do like a marathon potty, like he did a marathon Swift.
Have you done the soap challenge in your kitchen? Have you done the soap challenge in your kitchen where you put the soap on the floor and you can use it as a treadmill? Have you done that?
I do that every day because Erica always helps with the washing up. So there's the amount of soap and water on the floor anyway. So I've known that one for a while.
Oh, okay.
All right. Fifth attempt now to wrap the potty.
Speaking of kitchen, my sourdough, Jonesy. You didn't even ask about my sourdough, but we'll leave that till another time.
We'll leave that for next week, mate. Why don't you just write a list of all the things you want to say on this app, and because we can add more people to the stream. I think we can go up to 6. So why don't we just keep adding each week? So I'll speak to the brass and make sure that you two get on because you didn't say everything you needed to. So thanks for tuning in. That's Peloton on Pause, brought to you by Green Edge. We'll see you next week.